Hi, so thank you very much, James. We are from Fluffy Fairy Games, and today we want to show you how we scaled our game from a minimal viable product to basically a successful game by doing weekly updates. So this is Julian, our product manager of Idle Miner Tycoon, our first game, and me, Oliver, CTO and co-founder of Fluffy Fairy Games. So we started Fluffy Fairy Games almost 2 years ago. We were like 5 founders in a small basement in Germany, hacking down some games. And now we managed with our two games to scale the company to over 35 employees. Yeah. So we have 2 games out there yet. It's called Idle Miner Tycoon and Idle Factory Tycoon. Idle Miner Tycoon was released in July 2016. Idle Factory Tycoon is in soft launch since November. And together they made like over 20 million installs with an active player base of about 9 million MAU. Together they made us till now about 10 million in revenue. So how did we actually scale our games that big? As you all know, games are a very hit-driven business, so it's very hard to tell if your game is going to be successful if it's not tested on the market. And the faster you test it on the market, the faster you know if it's successful. And if it's not successful, you didn't waste too much time and money. So what we do is, for example, for Idle Miner Tycoon, we only took like 2 months of development, planning, and testing to get like a minimum viable product out of the market. And from there on, we go on if it's working out. And we also started with a very small team. We started with 5 people on Idle Miner Tycoon. With Idle Factory Tycoon, we did basically the same. And what we also do is to schedule like release parties even before starting actually the development of the game. So this increases like the pressure on ourselves because it will be very awkward if you don't have something playable in this 2 months and we're doing like the release party. So how did we actually manage to build a game in only 2 months with a small team? So basically we had to say to a lot of things no. So we had like very good ideas during development, and we always was thinking, hey, do we really need this for a minimum viable product, or is it something we can add later too? So we always had to think, hey, is this reasonable? And basically we had to say no to most of the things we had ideas of. So for example, we didn't ship anything with EIPs because like if the players don't like your game and it's not fun, they probably spend much money either. And also we had no ad mediation. We're doing rerouted video ads. We only had like 1 ad network integrated. We didn't do like a lot of backend features. It was completely offline. So we had no cloud save, no social features, and there weren't much long-term retention or long-term motivation because like we only had it like content for 2 to 3 days of playing. So that's we only did this because like we want to basically test the core gameplay mechanic if this works out, and from there on we still can continue and add more content. So when we get our games or our minimum viable product out of the market, we basically test for day 1 retention or look at day 1 retention as the key KPI factor. Because we think if day 1 retention is high, the players get really engaged with the game, they really like it, they love the core gameplay mechanic, and if their retention is high, we can go on from that. If it's not that high, we basically have to think, or it's possibly likely that the gameplay mechanic isn't working out, there are some flaws, or it's not fun, and we probably have to reiterate on this core gameplay mechanic first before adding new features and stuff like that. But also, if day 1 retention is really bad, we always have to consider if we completely kill the project. And if we do this, it wouldn't be too bad because we only put in like 2 months of development time and not that of a big team size. So luckily with our 2 games, Idle Miner Tycoon and Idle Factory Tycoon, we got like really high day 1 retention numbers. They are both over 70%, and that's what we think is a good number to go on with further development. So after releasing it out the market, and if the day one retention is really good, we start to look at player feedback. We're looking on what the users really like. Do they want new content? Do they want something else? And we try to be very lean and agile and get this feedback from the users very fast into the game. So we basically try to do weekly updates to incorporate the user feedback as fast as possible. So with Idle Miner Tycoon, we released it in July 2016, and we did like over 80 client updates already with Idle Miner Tycoon. We also think as our game's not like as done or as finished at some point, but we rather see them as a service. So we want to continuously add new features and polishing it until like forever. Okay, now Julian will actually take over and present you like how we do these weekly updates or how we manage to do that.
So how do we actually do it? I think probably the most important question is what process do we use for these weekly updates? So the process we use is called lean development. I guess a few of you know the book The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. So just shortly, what is actually lean? So for us, lean is trying to strip away all the unnecessary features, all the unnecessary processes, so you're able to deliver fast. So you're able to deliver fast. So for example, if you want to implement a new feature, think twice if everything you actually want to implement is really necessary for the feature to actually work. So the minimum viable product approach we use for the game itself, we also use it for every update, for every feature we actually implement. Our update policy is basically we do one update is one sprint, and we want to finish this one sprint in 1 week. This includes the planning, the developing, and the testing, and very important there is it also includes the final testing. So we don't add like 2 or 3 days after the week to be sure that everything works. That's all done within the 1 week. So how do we make the new update? The first step in making a new update for us is the game design. So our game design team works mostly 1 week in advance and tries to figure out all the flow charts, the data, everything we need for a new feature. This then goes to the art team. The art team processes this data and creates all the necessary assets, everything we need for UI, icons, and if there are some changes we need to do during the sprint, the art team will do this, but those should mostly be smaller changes. Then the actual sprint starts and the dev team starts implementing the new features. Our focus there is that the dev team should not be blocked by any other team. So we actually want, that's actually why we do the game design, the game art in advance. So there's nothing that keeps a developer from working, because if a developer is idle for 1 day because he waits for some assets, we won't be able to finish in 1 week. What we also do during the sprint is a lot of QA testing. So as soon as one part of a feature is testable, it goes to QA and they already start testing it. This ensures that we can fix most of the bugs pretty soon and we are able to finish the sprint within 1 week. And it also includes, like I said before, the final testing. So we mostly have like 1 day of the week where we all do the final testing together to ensure that our feature is bug-free. One example for the process would be when we implemented our skill tree. So basically our game design team came up with the idea, yeah, we want a skill tree, these are the skills we want to implement, that's how the UI flowchart looks like. And then they gave this data to the game art team. The game art team then drew all the icons we needed for each individual skill, did a little bit of design sessions for how the actual skill tree looks like, and gave this data then to the development team. Development team started implementing it, and because we won't be able to implement a whole skill tree in 1 week, we broke it down to one skill path with a limited amount of skills. If I remember correctly, it was like 6 skills. And that was the first iteration we did on that feature. So if we have a big feature, we break it down to smaller updates in weekly cycles, and it also helps us testing it out. How does the community like this feature? Is it viable? Does it boost some KPIs we want to boost with this feature? An additional thing we do is we have a pretty nice continuous integration system. So as soon as a developer pushes a commit, a build gets built by our pipeline, and QA can test this build within 10 to 20 minutes. So that helps a lot in keeping up the fast pace. For us, it's very important to find and accelerate our critical path. So what we try to do is whenever we know that someone won't be able to finish within 1 week because he has a lot of work to do, we try to identify that, help him out, accelerate the whole critical path. And what we have added for that is, as you can see, the person who's working on the critical path gets like the red crown. So everybody in the team knows, oh, okay, we won't bother this person, he has a lot of work to do. We also incorporate a single piece workflow. So basically, each member of the team has only one active task, is only allowed to switch to another task when he is actually finished. We do this to ensure that everybody stays focused all the time, because it helps us pushing these updates weekly. How we do our rollout, so basically we have a staged rollout on Android. We start out on day 1 with 1%, increase it to 5% on day 2. Within these 2 days, we try to identify bugs via our reporting tools. On day 3, we increase it to 20%. That's where we start looking out for user feedback and store reviews. And if everything works out, we're going to release the version on Android after day 4. And we're also going to release it on iOS if everything worked out with Android. We have no staged rollout for iOS. If there is an issue, we try to push a fixed version as soon as possible. It mostly takes us about 1 day to do a bug fix version and put it in rollout again. One another important key factor for development is we try to be as player-centric as possible and connect to our players in multiple of different ways. So we have a pretty nice community management team, and we look out for channels like Google Play, where we got, for example, the idea and suggestion to do like a research system, which is basically our skill tree. We also have Facebook as a channel, as well as emails. What we also do is we have these weekly meetings with our community management team. So basically we have like this report session where the whole development team gets to know what are the bugs the users see in the corporate. So for example, do they think the new update is bad or boring? We do this weekly because of our weekly updates, so we can ensure that we can push fixes for bugs defined or push fixes for like bad gameplay decisions, game design decisions as soon as possible. Now Oli will continue with a list of features we implemented and how they affected our KPIs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I was talking that like with the minimum product we have, we didn't have like IAPs, localization, all those kind of things in our game. But we think, of course, to make like a very successful games, they are crucial. So we really want to have to integrate them, and so basically want to show you like a timeline how we did it and how it affected our KPIs. So at the beginning we had like, after releasing Idle Miner Tycoon, we got like some problems with the save game system. Like a lot of users were complaining, hey, I'm losing my save game, and so on. We only saved the save game file on application close, so yeah. And sometimes there were some edge cases, for example, if the battery dies or the game crashes and stuff like that, and people will lose their save game. So we decided to improve on that, so it raised like the technical stability and also the user satisfaction. We have rewarded video ads integrated in our game. We use it quite heavily, and at the beginning we only had like one ad network integrated. The problem with this is that like many ad networks have like a limited amount of videos they can show per day per user. So if you have like really hardcore players which watch like several videos a day, they probably get to some point where they can't get to watch any videos again. So we decided to add ad mediation. We did like integrating several ad networks, and therefore we could show more videos. The user were happier because they actually liked to watch those videos to get the rewards, and we also made more revenue because we could show more videos. As I told, we only had like gameplay for about 2 to 3 days. So players who got through the gameplay really loved the game, but they couldn't play anymore because there was like no content. So we decided to add more content at this stage. So what we are doing, we had like one mine at the beginning where you can build up your mine empire, and then we added like several more mines, up to 15 now. This was quite easy to do for us, so we could really ship it in like 1 week, and the player got a lot more content. So this increased like the more long-term retention, like day 7 and day 30 retention, and also the users really liked that. At some point, we also decided to integrate in-app purchases because they also create revenue stream. We decided to do like temporary boosts and permanent boosts. Later, we also integrated limited time sale offers, which really helped us to increase the revenue. And we also do progress offers. So, for example, if a player hits a certain progress or level, they also get like a very special offer. This, of course, increased our revenue. So after that, we got like a lot of complaints about cheaters. We were integrating leaderboards too, and like players hated it that others are like way higher than you actually can get. And one big thing about that was like a lot of offline games, you can just adjust your system time clock to the future, and you can mess up with those countdown timers you have in your game. So this is like a really hard problem to solve, because actually you can only solve it by having like a server connection stable. We looked it up on the internet and looked what we can do, and there were some tools to help with that. We thought, hey, this could work. We tested it internally, but there were like also a lot of edge cases where the users, or also the honest users, couldn't play anymore because the tool was messing up their countdown timers. So like technical stability went down because it introduced a lot of new bugs, and also user satisfaction went down because even the honest players couldn't really play anymore. So we decided to just kick it out again. So this was like not a good decision to put it in. After that, we looked on how we can increase our download numbers. Luckily, we already had like a lot of organics at the beginning, but we didn't have so much money to actually spend a lot of UA and buying users. So we decided to localize our game. So we localized it to over 24 languages now. Also the store pages, which increased our downloads, and also players liked that their game is now in their language. At some point, we also added live op events. Players who got like through all the extended content, didn't have to do much more. So we decided to do like live op events. So what we are doing is like doing like a special mine, which is out there for like a weekend or something like that. It depends. Sometimes we do more days. Sometimes we only do it on weekends, and players can get rewards out of it and use it in their main game. And this also increased revenue because we added like special offers for these event mines. So people are really engaged with those event mines, and they want to reach certain obstacles, and they spend money for that. So that's one thing which really works out great for us. So we could also increase retention and revenue, of course. So lately we also added social features. We integrated Get Social to where you can invite your friends, basically via a lot of platforms. And with those friends you can now get on expeditions, as you can see this here, and get certain rewards if you join them. So it's like a cooperative multiplayer, and people really love it. The retention gets higher, and we got more downloads because the players invite their friends and speaking to them. So from there on, it's like we have a lot more ideas to integrate in this year, and a lot is coming soon. So check it out, and now you have some time to ask us any questions.
Prior to the sprint actually starting, can you elaborate on that? Is that actually like art and design, passing assets and requirements to the dev team, and then dev starts on that? Or are they all within a sprint, like working for the next sprint? Or just elaborate on how that works a little bit. Thanks.
So basically our team has its own sprint. They are also doing like a weekly sprint, and we try to work ahead, because we had some issues in the past where we were like, the dev team was ready to actually implement it completely, but we were missing a lot of art assets, and there was some times basically where it was pretty close to finish within a week. So that's why we put like the art team in its own sprint and the work ahead now. And it's always like the main feature ideas they always come from our game design team. And that's also where we already start thinking about UI, tutorial, everything. So we try to think in advance which assets we actually need. During the sprint, when the development team implements, we often have problems with like some assets are too small, too big, or it's like the graphic isn't centered or something. So that's the moment when the art team gets back in and basically corrects those mistakes. So the art team is kind of on its own, but they're also helping in during the sprint when, for example, because of special needs, we need a new icon. So yeah.